I'm Yoshi Saijo. About a few days back, I gave a talk at Envision 2021. The topic was Uncovering Our Blind Spots at Princeton University. I just want to keep my voice, or I just want to make a record of my talk. The topic was future design. The subtitle of my talk was Bequeathing Sustainable Natural Environments and Sustainable Society to Future Generations. Now, what have we been doing? Here, we means human being. In 1898, more than 120 years ago, Crookes, he gave an inaugural address at British Academy of Sciences because he was a physicist. Everybody thought about that he's going to give us some talk about physics. However, he said this way: England and all civilized nations stand in deadly peril. Wow. As mass multiply, food sources dwindle. Humans would begin dying of hunger in large numbers sometime around the 1930s. And he also mentioned about the only answer was to find a way to make synthetic fertilizers, means fixed nitrogen, refining it from the Earth's greatest reservoir of nitrogen, means the atmosphere. Picking up some nitrogen from the air. 80% of the air is nitrogen. And then adding water. And burning these are using fossil fuels. Then Yahaba and Bosch, they made a new process to create ammonia. Ammonia can be nitrogen fertilizers and explosives. You remember last year we had a huge explosion in Beirut. And nitrogen fertilizer can be foods. And they get Nobel Prize in chemistry. See, human can make some nitrogen fertilizers. These can get into the atmosphere and also land. And nitrogen fertilizers just stay in the land about 20%. 80% of nitrogen fertilizer get into land and also ocean. These may create a release of greenhouse gases, N2O. N2O's greenhouse effect is about 300 times of CO2. And PM2.5, contamination of groundwaters, eutrophication of rivers, streams, lakes, and so on. This is a picture of ammonia production. Right after 1945, ammonia production goes up so rapidly. Around here, some dent. This means around 1990, former Soviet Union collapsed. For this reason, Russian people couldn't buy nitrogen fertilizers because they are so expensive for them. And that's the reason why we do have a kind of dent. Then goes up again. Now, more nitrogen fertilizers, more fertilizers means more food. More food means more population. Wow, population goes up so rapidly very recently for the last 100 years. This is also very interesting figure. The 2015 disparity, population supported without synthetic nitrogen fertilizers. What about the upper part, red part? Population fed by synthetic nitrogen fertilizers. Of course, see, around here, 1940, using Yahaba-Bosch processes, this much people has been supported by nitrogen fertilizers, means synthetic nitrogen fertilizers. But currently, see, think about your half of your body, half of your body is coming from the air, see, nitrogen. This nitrogen can be processed into fertilizers. Then fertilizer can make food. This food can get into your body, right? The other important thing is more population, see, means more energy. Wow, around 1950s, so rapidly, we have been burning fossil fuel. See, means more energy means more CO2. Then, this picture is a very, very famous planetary boundaries picture by Rockstrom. The center of the figure means green, then gradually yellow, finally red. These colors show probability. Once we get into red part, such as nitrogen, we cannot go back to the previous stage. So in other words, we are going over the tipping point. Phosphorus is also in danger. We cannot go back to the previous stage regarding genetic diversity. What about climate change? Climate change is in danger. And so many failures to control various cycles, such as the nitrogen cycles, the carbon cycles, and so on, has caused many future failures. I just want to ask, why? I want to go back to our human natures, human oddities, and Robert Sapolsky said that we do have three important human oddities. The first one is sociality. We are intensely social, and our fanciest types of intelligence are social skills. Wonderful, right? Means that we are the people who can dominate everything. The other animals, land, plants, this is a kind of the Western thought, human versus the others. However, Eastern people, or Eastern philosophy says, we are all equal, including trees, rivers, animals, and so on. We are supposed to change the foundation of sciences now. All right, let me go back to my previous story. What about the second one? Well, contrast. Our brain is more interested in contrast than absolute. So it means that change is important. Wow, I had a huge noise outside. Outside is getting darker very rapidly. We have to respond to survive. In other words, we want to go for the location where no change is there. So means that imagine evaluation function. Differentiating evaluation function, you can find the top, right? So means that contrast is a kind of optimality principle embedded into our brain or body. Next one, impulse. The dopamine reward pathways in the brain light up on brain imaging tests when we go for the impulsivity, immediate reward. That's us. Then what about future? I just want to add one more due to Tali Charlotte. She said we are creatures who forget something awful in the past, pursue pleasure now, and consider the future optimistically in order to survive. Tali Charlotte is also a neuroscientist. So basically speaking, we do have these four properties. Of course, psychologists have been talking about so many other properties, but let me focus upon these four properties. Wow. These people can fight each other, means the war of all against all. In order to avoid this kind of fighting, Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau, and several other people suggested us to make some social contract. And that we can get liberty and equity through the auspices of the state. Now we can create free market. Market can determine, or demand and supply can determine the prices, not by king. And we do have democracy. See, everybody has equal voting right. And one more thing is that we are the people who are supposed to control nature. And Francis Bacon Bacon is an employer of herbs. And we made this kind of society. And free market and democracy, these are very important two pillars of our society. And we've been using this kind of society for over 200 or 300 years. This society can change us. See, sociality is could be weaker. The rest of the three are getting bigger. See, once our properties they have been changed, see, society can be changed. Imagine, for example, markets. We need global market. We can buy everything from the other side of the earth. It means that people's nature or people's oddities can be changing our society. Our society can change our nature. See, we have been experiencing this kind of cycle. That's my view. Then what are the problems? For example, science. Harvard, Bosch, they thought about they can make some fertilizers. Fertilizer can make food. The other important thing is fertilizer makes food. Food makes people. People use energy. This kind of thing influence. And what about the market? Future generation, they don't have any money in the current market. So it means that even the future generation want to keep some resources for them, they cannot do that. What about democracy? Think about it. In your city, once you want to be a candidate for a city mayor, once you say, once I'm chosen, I want to ban entire usage of vehicles using fossil fuels. I don't think you can win. So basically speaking, our system doesn't have any eyes to see the future. For this reason, now is the time to design the eyes to see the future. Now, one of the key concepts of future design is futurability. Imagine, see, when we are short of some food, parents can reduce some food, and then they can give food to their children. Then parents can be happier than before. Can we extend this kind of feeling or ideas beyond kinship? That is futurability. And I say a person exhibits futurability when she or he experiences an increase in happiness as a result of deciding and acting to forego current benefits as long as it enriches future generations. That's a definition of futurability. And I say, I just want to define future design this way. Designing and implementing social systems that activate futurability to control various cycles. And one of my former colleagues, Aoki-san, Aoki conducted some fMRI experiment. And he said, wow, we do have reward systems. And neuroscientists have been talking about that a reward system is for self-benefit. However, he found that at the same system, same network, same location, we do have normative value system. So why don't we activate normative value system? That's a kind of beginning of future design research. The other important thing is that what are the variables? And traditional social sciences or traditional sciences regarding people's way of thinking, their way of thinking is fixed. What about institutions? Institutions are also fixed. Then what's going to happen? In the latter part of the last century, mechanism design people thought about given people the way of thinking, they can design some system or some mechanism to attain, for example, efficiency and equity. And what about here? IPCC, SDGs, Future Earth. They thought about they can change people's way of thinking without changing institutions. Can we do that? That's our starting point. We are the people who want to change institutions, design institutions to change people's way of thinking. So we have to go for this part in order to cope with climate change, the destruction of, cope with the destruction of, for example, nitrogen cycle. Let me talk about methodology. Usual research methodology is using, for example, humanity, social sciences, and sciences. We can understand human thinking, human behavior, and nature. Then we can solve problems. However, our methodology is slightly different. We are supposed to design mechanisms to change human thinking and behavior. Then we can check it out. Can we change human thinking and behavior using humanity, social sciences, and sciences? So actually, the order is totally opposite. Starting from 2016 or 17, we started using, for example, imaginary future people. And so many laboratory and field experiments in Japan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Indonesia, in China, and so on. And we found that, wow, it is possible to design social systems that activate future ability. After that, okay, why don't we do some practices, right? And then we found that, wow, this validates the effectiveness of future design in practices. And I invented a kind of new game called the Intergenerational Sustainability Dilemma game. I'm going to show you the most simplest one. 3 students come into our lab. They can talk up to 10 minutes. And they are supposed to choose A or B. Once they choose A, we gave them the $36 instantaneously. Of course, they can divide the money among the 3, right? And once they choose B, 27, which one would you like to choose? Of course, A, right? However, I just want to add one more information. Once you guys choose A, next groups A and B must be reduced by 9. 36 becomes 27, 27 becomes 18. However, they choose B, then next generation A and B stay the same as before. That's the structure of the game. Wow, imagine they chose A, then they left. Then generation 2 comes into the thing, and they're supposed to choose A or B, knowing that previous generation chose A. Because the previous generation chose A, that's the reason why our A and B are reduced by 9. Now, talking up to 10 minutes, they decide to choose B. Wow, they can get $18. Then they left. Generation 3 comes into the scene. They can talk up to 10 minutes. And A, B, they know that. Wow, because previous generation chose B, that's the reason why we do have C. A means 27, B means 18. Then we are supposed to choose A or B. This kind of game, see. In this one, what if one of the 3 becomes an imaginary future person? This imaginary future person is supposed to negotiate with other 2 people, thinking about the benefit of the future people. This imaginary future person idea is coming from Iroquois. Whenever they decide something important, they imagine themselves as members of the 7th generation in the future. This is Lake Ontario. And 5 or 6 tribes, they made some federation. And I thought about, and they want to make these federations peace. And founding fathers such as Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, they actually went to Iroquois meeting to understand how they have been doing their federation. That's the beginning of 13 states, 13 colonies. 13 colonies supposed to be the USA, right? And 200 years later of the US constitutions, US Senate and House, they made a kind of the declaration, means thank you very much for Iroquois. You are the guys, okay, who treated George Washington and also Benjamin Franklin so well. Next one is Amami Island in Japan. Kind of same idea. Do whatever considering the 7th generation in the future. And philosopher John Rawls, he said that we are supposed to use the veil of ignorance. So it means that whenever we are supposed to think about distributive justice, forgetting about you are female or male, rich or poor, covering yourself using the veil of ignorance. Neuroscientists have been using a theory of mind. We can understand other people's mind or pretend like somebody else. Political scientists are now thinking about, for example, domain voting, means giving babies or children voting right. Of course, they cannot vote. For this reason, we are supposed to use a surrogate voting system. In other words, imagine us as members of the 7 generations. This might activate future ability, avoiding future failures. That's our hypothesis. Let me show you our experimental result. Without imagining a future person, see, so many from generation 1 to generation 5. Actually, we conducted up to 7. See, imagine you are the people who is the last generation of the human being. Of course, you are supposed to use everything, right? And let me show you everything. However, you can find several B's. See? Wow, percentage of B is 28. The other important thing is, see, here, B, right? All 3 people are prosocial. However, see, either 1 or 2 people are prosocial. They chose A. So once everybody is prosocial, they chose B. Then what about using imagine a future person? So many B's, see, 60%. Our current democracy chose 28. However, see, binding democracy using imagine a future person chose 60. So it means changing our system, binding our democracy, we can change our outcome. Let me show you several future design practices. In 2015, Japanese government announced that every city and town, they are supposed to give some policies from the viewpoint of 2060. And we went to Yahaba town. Yahaba town is a kind of small town in northern part of Japan. Population was about 27,000. And that time we used this kind of method. The 4 or 5 citizens, they are supposed to talk about their policies aiming at 2060. Here, people wearing a yellow jacket, I say this way, you are supposed to go to 2060. Wearing these jackets, you can go to 2060 by using time machine without changing your age. From there, please think about policies for 2015. And we conducted 1 session per month. And in the final session, these people, see, current generation and imaginary future generation negotiated each other. And the current generation, see, even though we repeated several times, they think about the current problem as future problems. For example, we are short of elderly people's facility care system. I mean, the facility care for this reason, see, even 2060, we need more elderly people's facilities. However, imagine a future people, they are so creative. And so many examples, but I just want to give one example. Yahaba town had a mountain called Nansho Mountain. Nansho Mountain has been damaged by the flood. And at the top of the mountain, there used to be some stations. Galaxy train station was there. A famous writer in Japan, and he climbed up the mountain. He made a beautiful story called The Night of Galaxy Train. It is a very beautiful friendship story. And everybody in the town knows that. So for this reason, they thought about it. They want to change the whole mountain to natural park. That's one idea. Towards the end of the sessions, final session, current generation people, future generation people, they negotiated each other. I'm going to give you just one example. Current generation person and said this way: we want our children's medical care free. Sounds like a very nice idea. However, one person from the imaginary future generation said this way: wow, that's a very nice idea. I do have 3 children. And once medical fee for these 3 children are going to be free, that's wonderful. However, who is supposed to pay for that? Who is supposed to support that? Our tax means using some part of the project of the town, they may be get into trouble. Once the money is coming from Japanese government office, then how many years? And she also mentioned about that when my children, they are going to be adult, I don't like for my children to cover up these fees. And they started fighting each other. And Mayor Takahashi has been seeing these sessions. And wow, and he said that, wow, and future design type of deliberation may work so well. So he declared that Yahaba is a future design town in 2018. And he made office called the Future Strategy Office. There, people are supposed to make some policies from the future point of view. And the first job was to create comprehensive future plan of Yahaba using future design. And they have already finished making this plan. And 83% of the proposal coming from future design sessions. We also made some interview with imaginary future people after half a year. And we thought about me as the current person, me as the future person. They have been fighting each other. However, the answer is no. Means the imaginary future person has been thinking these two people, see, slightly higher point of view. That is amazing, see. And they also said this way: thinking me as an imaginary future person is my enjoyment. Thinking as an imaginary future person even after sessions. So means whenever I go to PTA meeting, whenever I go to the supermarket, I naturally started thinking me as an imaginary future person. Let me show you, see, looking at future generation from current generation. Wow, today I went to City Hall to think about future generations. See, this way. The structure of the thinking, they are totally different. And I'm going to give you one more example. Future Design Uji. Uji city is just beside Kyoto city in Japan. And population of Uji city is about 180,000. However, this town had 132 meeting places, and they are getting older and older, and how to maintain. So the city wants to destroy some of them. However, citizen people who are using meeting places, they don't want for these houses to be destroyed. So City Hall conducted some future design workshop for the general public at future of the community. And when they look at the future from the present, the person with the strongest myopic opinion dominates entire discussion. See, each group has about 4 people, and just one of them is a kind of person who has a very strong opinion. See, wow, meeting house supposed to be maintained. 1 month later, and we say, please look at the future from the present. Oh, sorry about that. And this said, look at the present from the future. See, look at the present from the future. And wow, a smile from those who had a very strong opinion. Wow, I understand. Okay, taking a look at my opinion. Wow, sounds like a kind of very myopic. And he or she can understand. See, your opinion is so myopic. Every means that the other 3 people think about that way. For this reason, see, they started smiling. And there are so many ideas. I'm going to give you just one of them. And why don't we use vacant classrooms in schools due to declining population? We can see our teachers, children, and even we can help teachers. And 32 citizens participated in the session. And about 25 out of 32, they formed a kind of the new citizen body called Future Design Uji. They thought about wow, and future design is a very nice idea. Why don't we continue using future design type of ideas in making policies in Uji cities? And November 16, 2018, and I attended the Uji City Symposium on Future Design. I'm going to give you just 2 examples. One, Mr. Kamijima. He is a first-class architect. And he used to design houses according to orders, of course. After our session, he started to consider the harmony between the house and the community, and also the role of the house in the community from the future point of view. Then he said, wow, using this kind of framework makes me happy. Wonderful way to designing houses. So he started using our method. And Miss Seto, her child doesn't want to go to school. In our future design dialogue, several people started talking about that it is possible to learn freely without going to school through the internet. Wow, so many schools currently they are doing it that way. But this was about 2 years ago. See? In this way, truancy would disappear, and she felt much better. And she became the president. She became a kind of the candidate for the president of PTA, and she won. And now working with the teachers on how the school should be changed from the future point of view. This is a kind of the greeting for PTA parents. And have you ever thought about the future 30 years from now? The children currently enrolled in school may have become parents and be in the position of being called guardians. And as society changes, the nature of schools will probably change. However, I'm sure that underlying things we want to cherish will remain the same. See? Then she wants to change the school. That is wonderful, right? And the important thing is that we started observing change in thinking and way of life. That's wonderful, right? That's our destination. And Uji City has adopted the future design for its staff training. And this is a new framework for city officials and residents, and to design the future together. So actually, future design Uji people and the city started making some comprehensive plan for the future. Wow. This is the cover of April 1st issue of Uji City News. And actually, April 1st is a very important, we do have a very important meaning on April 1st. This is the first day of the fiscal year in Japan. So that Uji City, the most important policies or findings in April 1st issue. So these 4 people are important members of Future Design Uji. And there are many other practices in progress. Generation politics at Amsterdam, INRIA at Lyon, members of the Geneva City Council, and many other. So many other locations in Japan and outside Japan just started using our future design. And in our future design practices, and we usually use present design. So design the future from the present. That's a usual session, right? Then we are going to go for past design, evaluate past history events. So you are the people, see, you are the future people from the viewpoint of 20 years ago, see. So that you can give some advice to the people in 1990s or 200. So that past design is a kind of very nice practice to be imagine future people. Then future design the present from the future. We occasionally use picture shows. And the future design is a kind of a fractal. We can apply local problems, or we can apply global issues. Last year, I was invited by a T20 summit to be a panelist. T20 is a kind of preparatory meeting for G20. So giving some ideas to G20. So I said president supposed to be imaginary future president. Prime minister supposed to be imaginary future prime minister. So using this framework, they can negotiate our current problems. And however, G20 didn't adopt my ideas. But I just want to keep telling them, see, I don't want to give it up. And we used to be Homo sapiens. Knowing the future using the science, we can understand our prospects or our futures. But just looking at the future from the present, this is not enough. For this reason, see, we are the people who can see the present from the future. We are supposed to change our nature to Homo futurabilis. Thank you. Now, once you are interested in future design, I wrote a small review paper on future design. And also please see my papers in this HTTP. Thank you.